Hello, everybody. This is Mr. Seifert. This video will be posted on Monday, 4/27, April 27th, as part of week 4 of remote learning for Springwood Middle School. Hope you all are doing well. Hope you all are staying safe, social distancing. Wanted to use this video to discuss what we are going to be talking about for the week. Okay, so last week during week 3, we discussed ancient Greece and the origins of democracy in our United States Constitution. In our government today, we have a representative democracy. And what we explored last week is where did that idea of giving people power come from? Because in a democracy, we have a vote. People have a say, and once you turn 18, you are able to make decisions for our society. So what we explored last week was ancient Greece and the idea of a direct democracy, how people were using stones to make decisions, vote yes, no. The individuals who were able to vote, which were male citizens, and we explored that, slaves and people from foreign countries were not able to vote in ancient Greek society. Very similar to what we discussed in class, how when the founding fathers wrote the Constitution, only white male landowners were allowed to vote. And, again, that was around in ancient Greece. It wasn't until the 1920s where women got the right to vote, and the 1870s when African Americans who were enslaved got the right to vote, and African Americans were able to vote. So that idea, the origins of democracy, it all came back to ancient Greece, which we're going to continue discussing today. We are, rather than focusing on the origins of democracy, though, now what we're going to discuss is we're going to talk about the people who lived in ancient Greece, specifically two societies, two groups of people who are both Greek, but are very different. And we're going to be talking about the people of Athens, known as the Athenians, and we're going to be talking about the people of Sparta, known as the Spartans. So very similar to how we discussed in class, where people in the New England colonies had their way of life, and people in the middle colonies had a different way of life, and in the southern colonies had their way of life. It's very similar to that in ancient Greece, where there were people in Sparta and people in Athens, and both were extremely different cultures. They put a lot of their emphasis and their beliefs into specific aspects of society that really shaped the people. So, like I said, this is going to be posted on Monday, the 27th. These are going to be your notes that I want you to go over, and I'm just going to briefly discuss some of the things that I wanted you to pay specific attention to. First of all, I put up a map of ancient Greece. Or actually of Greece. The geography hasn't changed too much. This is a physical map, not a political map. Remember, a political map shows state lines or political lines where one country ends and one begins. This is a physical map, so we don't see a lot of the lines, but we do see a lot of geographic features. One thing I want you to notice about the Balkan Peninsula, right, is that a peninsula is surrounded by water on 3 sides. It's similar to an island, where an island is totally surrounded by water, but this is just surrounded by 3 sides of water. So we have the Adriatic Sea, we have the Mediterranean Sea down here, we have the Aegean Sea here. Again, the specific people that we're going to be talking about are the Athenians and the Spartans, but there's a lot of mountain ranges here. We have a mountain range here, we have a mountain range here. So I did just want you to see the geography, and that geography is actually discussed more in the first section where it says the rise of city-states, Athens and Sparta. So this is where you'll find a lot of the information about the geography. So again, what we're going to be doing today is comparing and contrasting the Athenians and the Spartans. So here's just a quick little snapshot of the people of Athens and the people of Sparta. It talks about just demographics, the size of their populations, the region that their areas are in, the climate, economy, what the economy was based on back then. And that's just quick little overview, a quick little introduction. We're going to start getting into kind of the meat and potatoes of our discussion in that compare and contrast as you go down these notes. So there are only a couple pages in notes. What I want to start off by talking about is the Athenians, okay, the think tank. The reason why this article put the think tank for the Athenians is because the Athenians put a lot of their time and effort into educating their citizens. Education was one of the top priorities of the people of Athens. They were the brains. They spent a lot of time looking into science and philosophy and architecture, and it really was an educational society. Whereas the Spartans, if we scroll down here, again, these are still people of Greece. We see that this article titled this section Military Might, and the whole focus of the Spartans, if you've ever heard of them, they wanted to raise their citizens to be warriors. These battle-hardened individuals who could protect their society against either slave revolts or enemies who are trying to take over their land. And the vast majority of the time, the Spartans put all their emphasis into military training. And one thing that is interesting is that we see somewhat of a civil war between the Spartans and the Athenians. And one thing I want you to think about is, what is better when you are in a battle? Is it better to be smart, or is it better to be strong? We go back to that argument of brains versus brawn. Is it better to be an intellectual and know better battle strategies and know more about your enemy? Or is it better to just be essentially someone who is trained to fight? What is going to be better? And there actually was the war that was between the Athenians and the Spartans was known as the Peloponnesian War, which was in 400 BC. And I'm not going to tell you who wins that war, because I want you to do that research on your own. I want you to think about that on your own in class, relating it back to the 13 colonies, which we talked about for a good portion of the year. We talked about John Adams versus Sam Adams, two of our founding fathers who had drastic influence on the way our country is today. And, we have Sam Adams, who's one of the leaders of the Sons of Liberty, who was out in the streets battling the British and fighting tax collectors or whatever. And then you got John Adams, who was the lawyer. He was the brains. And both, it's hard to say who had more of an influence on the development of our society, but both played a significant role. There really is no right answer. What's better, brains or muscle? So that's going to be a question that I'm going to leave up to you. What you're going to do with these notes is you're going to use these notes. You're going to view these first, and you're going to use these notes to help you answer questions in Monday's assignment, which is just going to be a quick little comparison of Athens versus Sparta. As you can see, I got Athens, the brains, Sparta, the muscle, the brawn. And then there are a couple discussion questions that I want you to answer. One talks about the geography. Two talks about a test that the Spartan babies actually had to go through. They did not have a say, which was kind of messed up. When you go through these notes, it'll tell you about the things that the Spartans had to do to essentially train to become these warriors. So what test did Spartan babies have to go through? And then brains versus brawn. Who would win in a battle? Do you think it's better to be smart or strong? And there's really no correct answer to that. You are going to tell me, and I want you to explain why. Going through my list here. All right. The second assignment that you're going to be doing for the week, which will be posted on Wednesday, the 29th, I have kind of a WebQuest game day for you. So you're going to be going through a couple of websites that you're going to be exploring. There are a couple games that I want you all to play and to record some of your findings as you go through. The first one talks about a catapult, which is an old school weapon, very similar to kind of an old school cannon, but without the use of gunpowder. Essentially what it was a lever that had, a big ball or a cannonball on one side, and then on this side they would put a weight that was heavier than that ball, and they would release it, and it would shoot the cannonball long distances. So that was called a trebuchet or a catapult, and there's just a fun game where you're going to play and you're going to see how far you can shoot your trebuchet. These tools were great for battle, breaking enemy defenses. If they were, far distances away, you were able to shoot these catapults at them and try to break their enemy lines. Chariot races, okay, one of the other big emphasis things that we're going to emphasize in this week's lessons are the Olympics. One of the best achievements that come from ancient Greece were the Olympic Games, which is something that we still take part in today. Obviously, with COVID-19, the Olympics are kind of up for grabs, up in the air. Who knows what's going to happen? But every 4 years, we do have the Olympics. We have the Summer Olympics, we have the Winter Olympics, and that comes from the ancient Greeks. And one of the events that they did, one of the many events that they did, there were chariot races. Some of the other events that they did wrestling, they did discus throw, very similar to if you join track at Springwood. We have like a shot put, a throwing event. We have running events. We